It is truly a blessing to be with you all today. But as I begin, I want to tell you a little story of something that happened to me. And at the time that it happened, the revelation of what was going on at that moment, I didn't really understand it. But have you ever just felt hopeless and empty on the inside? Well, follow me for a moment. One morning, my son came to my room. I'm the general manager at Primo's Cafe. So this particular night, I had worked overnight. We did some cleaning after closing at 9, and I didn't get home until about 11. So I was tired. My son got up for school, and he came in my room, and he said, Mom, I need you to pick me up today at 5 o'clock. I said, okay. As he closed the door and began to go and catch the bus, I went back to sleep. I woke up, got dressed, went to work. When I left work that evening, I went to the school I rushed to go pick up my son because I thought I was running late. When I got to the school, there was one car in the parking lot. I didn't see any children. I didn't see anybody in sight. I got out of the car. I went to the door. I tried to open the door at the school. The doors were locked. And I'm thinking, I said, he told me to, I looked, but he wasn't there. I got in my car. I drove around the building. I said, maybe they're on the other side. There was nobody on the other side. I got back in my car, began to call my son. I began to text his phone to get no response. Y'all, I sat in my car. I drove back to the house thinking, well, you know what? Maybe he got a ride with another parent or something. Y'all, when I pulled up in my house in Ridgeland, the house was dark. I said, well, maybe he's in his room. So I got out the car. I unlocked the door. I walked through the house. I walked in the house. I started screaming, Jabari! Jabari, where are you? Y'all, he didn't answer. I opened his bedroom door. He wasn't there. I started walking back and forth through the house. Like, God, where is my child? Where is my son? Y'all, tears began to roll down my face. I was in pure panic. I didn't know what to do. As I was walking back and forth through the house, I started praying to God. I started talking to him. Y'all, have you ever talked to him out loud? Because I knew in the midst of me not being able to find my son, the only person that could help me in that moment was God, y'all. And I started to cry out to him. I said, God, I don't know where he is. I don't know what's going on right now. My baby's 13. I don't know what's going on. I said, but God, the devil is alive. He think he gonna have my baby. Yo, I was walking back and forth. I picked up my phone again. I called him. He didn't answer. I text because he usually responds to text. He didn't respond. I got back in my car and I went back to the school. Y'all, to pull up at the school and my son was walking out of the building. He got in the car. Y'all, I'm crying, makeup running, I'm tears, I'm a mess. And he looked at me. He said, Mama, what's wrong? I said, Jabari, you told me to be here at 4 o'clock. He said, Mama, you was asleep. I told you 5. Y'all, as I began to drive back home with my son sitting there, he was rubbing my arm, but I was continually crying. And he said, Mama, what's wrong with you? Y'all, in that moment, God began to speak to me. God began to say, I gave my only begotten son, my only one, my only boy. He said, I gave him so that you could have eternal life. And you can't go without your son for an hour without you about to lose your mind. Y'all, I sat there, and as I drove, I was crying, and I began to pray because I had never thought about it that way. God was showing me this wasn't just about my boy. It wasn't just about my son. What God was showing me in that moment, that I had put everything in my life before him. I had put my son, I had put my job, I had put my friendships. Everything in my life I had put before my relationship with him. And God was showing me in that moment that, Kenya, I need you to come back to me. I need you to come back to me. Y'all, that's when my life began to change. It was something so simple as me forgetting the time that I was supposed to pick my son up for school, that God gave me a revelation that changed my life. If he could give us his only begotten son, how many of you have ever panicked at the thought of where are your children? You can't get in contact with them. You're calling and you're texting them. You're about to go crazy because they're not responding. But then they just show up. They just show up. Y'all, I felt so hopeless in that moment. But what God was trying to show me, Kenya, if you put me first, put me first. All you got to do is put me first. Follow that guideline that I've given you, and everything else in your life will fall into place. Ladies, as I began to sit there and tears rolling down my face, and I'm just allowing everything, all of the revelation and everything that God was telling me in that moment to seek within my spirit, to sink right there within my spirit, y'all, that changed my life. It did. It was something so small. If we pay attention in our everyday lives, the things that are happening every day, God is giving us small revelations every day along the way. We just got to pay attention. We just have to pay attention. So ladies, I want to share with you a little bit about my story. My book and everything is out front. And the title of my book is Coming Back to Me, My Journey from Pain to Purpose. I've never been completely free. Free to live my life for who I want it to be. I went to church every Sunday, yet never understanding how could God see and hear everybody but excluded me. Did I deserve to be touched by hands so cold that they pierced through my very soul? Did I do something so wrong that he chose me and not my sister or my friend from across the street? God, I'm talking to you. Why can't you hear me? When I sat on that porch, when I look in the mirror, sadly all I can see is a lost little girl looking back at me. When she silenced me, she took my voice and gave it back to the man that hurt me. Now all I have are memories of a dark and dirty floor. The reflections I see when I look in the mirror makes the pain so real. God, how long would these bruises take to heal? Daddy, I sat on that porch, I cried, waiting for you to come. Daddy, what happened? Did you forget about me? I was screaming in silence, wishing my mother had noticed, yet she couldn't see me because of the depths of her own torment. Y'all, I'm not quite where I need to be, but do believe I'm coming back to me. Most of us had never created time to refocus, reflect, and come back to who we were supposed to be until we lose who we were completely supposed to be. Thus, we become broken, bitter, and filled with resentment. Ladies, I'm speaking from personal experience today because that was me. I spent most of my life in darkness. Y'all, I was angry, I was bitter, I was filled with resentment. After being sexually assaulted at the tender age of 8 years old by a family member and silenced by yet another family member, I felt like I didn't matter. It's one thing to be assaulted by a stranger, but to be violated by a family member destroys you on the inside. Then to be made to feel like you did something wrong to deserve that to happen to you completely damaged your way of thinking. I felt empty, like my fears didn't matter. No one understood me, so I felt my tears didn't matter. After experiencing that as a child, I grew up not understanding what men wanted from me. So before they could take it from me, I gave it to them. Sex had absolutely no meaning to me. I had no connection to it. And growing up, I never understood it. Y'all, there was no connection to it because I had never faced the trauma I had experienced in my childhood. When you can't heal what you're not willing to face. I had never faced what had happened to me as a child. I suppressed it somehow, yet it still managed to control me in so many different ways. I didn't realize it at the time, but the brokenness affected me in relationships. It affected me on my jobs. It affected me in relationship with other family members and friends, because if a family member does something like this to you, who do you trust? If another family member silences you, then who do you believe in? Who do you go to? Who do you talk to? So much was taken from me in that moment, and so many people never even realized. In college, I was invited to a party, and at that party I was faced with sexual assault all over again. But it was stopped before it could ever happen. Y'all, I went to my dorm room and I laid in bed, and as I began to cry and I fell asleep, I began to have dreams of what happened to me as a child because I hadn't faced that trauma. When I woke up, I wrote a letter to my parents exposing what had happened to me when I was just a child. Now, mind you, I'm in college, 19, 20 years old. writing a letter to my parents about something that had happened to me when I was 8 years old that they had no clue about. Can you imagine how my mother felt? She get this letter. I faxed it to her. I worked in a store in the Metro Center, and I faxed the letter to my mom. I called her and I said, I'm about to send you something. Turn your fax machine on. Y'all, I faxed the letter to my mom, and I didn't hear from her. I called my father and I said, have you talked to Mom? He said, no, what's going on? She just left. My mother had gotten in her car and she went to find the man that had done this to me. Not knowing at that time when I shared that story with my mother had faced sexual assault as a child herself. God allows us to go through things for a reason. Because me growing up feeling like my mother didn't understand me, my mother didn't see my pain. I felt like, I felt like this child that was just there going through life. Not knowing that my mother had experienced the same pain that I had. But my mother healing came through me sharing my story. And so many people, when I talk about this, they said, how did that happen? Because at that point, my grandmother shared the story with me of what happened to my mother. When my grandmother shared the story to me of what happened to my mother, I'm from the Delta. I was driving back to Jackson. And the whole 2.5-hour drive, I'm talking to my grandmother. Y'all know that was a long talk. And I cried all the way back to Jackson. And I picked up the phone and I was able to call my mother. And I said, Mom, I didn't know you had gone through this. But I didn't know my mother was still dealing with that hurt of what had happened to her when she was 5 years old. My mother healing came through me sharing my story. Because my mother was able to expose the way that she felt. She didn't know that my grandparents had dealt with what had happened to her. But she never knew that. So there was a broken relationship there. And those relationships was able to mend. So often we hide our stories because we're afraid of what people are going to say. And when my journals begin to be exposed and I begin to expose my truth, I said, God, I'm not going to go and tell people about this. No, I'm not going to tell people my truth. But my healing came through me sharing my truths. Every time I get up to speak, a different mask is revealed for me. Because as women, what we don't realize is we walk around and we wear so many different masks every day. We're so much to everybody else that are around us that we don't even know what to be to ourselves. I was wearing masks of shame. I was wearing masks of anger. I was wearing masks of bitterness. But every time I get up to speak, God casts down one of those masks. Every time I stand up and I tell my testimony, a new person is revealed. My strength came through me sharing my story. Your testimony is not a testimony unless you're willing to share it. But not only, God had to also show me, now you're healed. Your story ain't about you no more. Your story is about every woman that has went through the same thing that you have. Or every woman that know a little girl that's gone through what you have. Your voice is for them now. You're standing and you're sharing your story because for someone else to hear your story, healing's coming. I had an 81-year-old woman coming Primos. I had on a shirt that said, I am a survivor. And she said, what did you survive? And when I began to tell her my story, she grabbed my arm and pulled me to a table. And she said, you know what? I was sexually assaulted at the age of 16. And I never told anyone. She said, in being sexually assaulted, I had a child. And she said, I grew up allowing my parents and everybody in my community to think that I was just a fast girl. They didn't know that I had been sexually assaulted. She said, you're the first person that I've ever shared this with. Y'all, she was 81 years old. And she sat there and she held me and she cried. In that moment, I realized what God was doing through me. Not even a month later, she came back into Primos, y'all, and she had that daughter with her. And she said, I want you to sit with me as I tell my daughter. And she told her sitting right there at that table at Primos Cafe. And she said, if I had never met you, I don't think I ever would have been strong enough to tell my daughter this. Her daughter was 50-something years old. Never knew who her father was. The mother had just lied for years. And she needed, before she left this earth, for that to be released from her spirit. Y'all, I could tell you story and story after story of the things that has happened as I've been on this journey of coming back to me. Because every time I stand and every time I begin to speak my truth, God heals me. I'm standing here and I have tears in my eyes right now because there's a healing process that's taking place. But even in the midst of everything that I went through, even in the midst of me not even knowing myself, I got to know a man that knew more about me than anything. I got to know a man that loved me in spite of me. I got to know a man that said, Kenya, you will prevail in spite of. He said, Kenya, I can still use you despite the hell that somebody else brought into your life. I didn't understand that because I felt I was dirty. I felt that I was impure. I didn't feel like I was worthy enough for God to do anything with me. But God, y'all, he told me, he said, Kenya, you are enough just the way that you are.
All right.
I can still use you right now. And I would go to church every Sunday. And I would sit in church and I saw so many people that pretended to be so perfect. They came to church and y'all, they were so perfect. They sat there with their husbands and their children and they act like they didn't have any hell that had happened in their lives. I heard so many people and so many women and so many people that would get up and they would speak, but they never told their truths. They never shared their shame. Sometimes we never talk to our children about the hell we've gone through. And they look at us and they think we're perfect. So they're striving to be perfect. But God said, I'm not looking for a perfect people. He said, I want you to just be present. He said, Kenya, I don't want you to be perfect. He said, I just want you to be present. I want y'all to catch that today. He don't want a perfect people. He wants people that are present. He wants people that are willing to share their truth. I have a group on Facebook called Living in Your Truth. My story may not be your story, but you have a story too. And so often what we don't realize is what our stories can do for somebody else. There's so many women that have been in abusive marriages. There's so many women that have been through hell on their jobs. There's so many women that have gone through sexual assault. There's so many women that have dealt with so many different things. But guess what? We are afraid of what our sisters are going to say. We're afraid of what our friends are going to think of us that are sitting beside us. But I'm here to tell you, take the mask off. Because your story, just like my story, can help somebody. Somebody raised their hand at the last thing that I spoke. And a little girl, she said, you're not ashamed to tell people that you've been with different guys? No, because they have too. They just won't open their mouths and say it. She said, you're not ashamed to tell people of the different things that have happened throughout your life? I said, no, I'm not. Because you know what? I got a God that's forgiven me for all of that. Because so if they are looking at me, at what I used to be, then they need to go back and see my God. They need to go back and talk to him. Because if he can forgive me and the person sitting next to me is still looking at me for what I was, then you're not healed. So ladies, today my challenge to each of you and my challenge to myself, because every day I find myself coming back to me. When I got ready to title my book, my mama said, you're going to title your book Coming Back to Me? She said, people not going to understand that. I said, that's why they got to read it. That's why they got to read it. God allowed me to, I'm 36. I turned 36 last Sunday.
Happy birthday.
And God allowed me to come back to the woman he created me to be. Not that man created me to be, but that he created me to be. He gave me a voice. He gave me a new start. And ever since I've been walking in this new start with God, y'all, it's been so beautiful. It's been so beautiful because everything that shouldn't be aligned in my life, guess what? Along the way, God's removed it. All of those friends that didn't mean me any good, God removed them. You know, that young lady that was struggling to pay her bills because she didn't know how to save money, guess what? You know, I was calling my parents and saying, you know what? I don't think I'm going to be able to do it this month, but I'm able to show other people how to save right now. You know, this young lady that was, you know, driving around in a car that could break down at any moment. God said, I'm going to restore all of that. All you have to do is put your hand in my hand and allow me to lead you. And ever since I've been allowing God to lead my life, y'all, it's been so beautiful. It's been so beautiful. He gives you a light that shines from the inside out. And despite what I have on, guess what? People still see me. It's so beautiful. It is so beautiful getting to know God in the midst of all the hell that I feel that I've been through. How he can take your pain and turn it into your purpose. How I can be a general manager in a restaurant doing over $60,000 a week, but still be able to touch lives in the process. Y'all, it's something so beautiful about that. I never thought that I would be doing what I'm doing today. I never thought I would be traveling and speaking and telling people that, you know what, yeah, this happened to me. And not even care about what they thought when I walked out of the room, because I know that they've been through just as much hell as I've been through, but they're too afraid to share it. But I know that I serve a God that his grace and mercy, y'all, is still real. And my life is a testament of that. My life is a testament of that. I tell people so many times that I feel like I shouldn't be here. But he kept me in spite of me. There was times in college that I felt like I wanted to take my own life. But y'all, he kept me here. I would talk to God and God, why? Why are you keeping me here? What is my purpose? What do you have this little girl here for? What is my purpose? And every day when I begin to walk in my purpose and he began to reveal something new to me here, he began to open this door over here. And he began to allow me to meet people all around the world, begin to travel and tell them about this little old country girl from the dirt roads of the Mississippi Delta. My purpose is so that other girls from the Mississippi Delta will know that if God can do it for me, he can do it for you too. He's done something so fabulous in my life. And coming back to me, y'all, it's a movement. Because there's so many broken women, men too, but there's so many broken women that need to come back to who God created them to be. Y'all, I thank y'all so much.